Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today it's time to wrap up another 2 months of reading. I have a bit of a list today, but before I start I wanted to suggest another book that we can read together if you're up for it. Because in September I want to read Shibumi by Trevanian, a spy novel from I think the late 70s. So I thought we can read this together if anybody wants to join in. Maybe you have read the book and want to read it again, or maybe you haven't read it and you're looking for a spy novel to read. To give you a bit of an impression of what this book is about, I will read you the blurb on the back, and then you can decide if you want to join me for reading this in September. So, Nikolai Hell is the world's most wanted man. Born in Shanghai during the chaos of World War I, he is the son of an aristocratic Russian mother and a mysterious German father, and is the protege of a Japanese Go master. Hell survived the destruction of Hiroshima to emerge as the world's most artful lover and its most accomplished and well-paid assassin. Hell is a genius, a mystic, and a master of language and culture, and his secret is his determination to attain a rare kind of personal excellence, a state of effortless perfection known only as Shibumi. Now living in an isolated mountain fortress with his exquisite mistress, Hell is unwillingly drawn back into the life he tried to leave behind when a beautiful young stranger arrives at his door seeking help and refuge. It soon becomes clear that Hell is being tracked by his most sinister enemy, a super monolith of international espionage known only as the Mother Company. The battle lines are drawn, ruthless power and corruption on one side, and on the other, Shibumi. So I will be reading this in September, and then in the beginning of October the first video will be about Shibumi. And yeah, you are very welcome to join me. I hope that this will be a fun ride and a good spy novel. I'm not sure whether I have read a spy novel before, so I'm very excited for this one. Now let's start with what I've been reading in July and August. So the first book that I read in July was the first volume of The Legends of the Condor Heroes, A Hero Born by Jin Yong. I made a video about this one, so I won't say much about it, but it's a Chinese fantasy set around the year 1200. And with Chinese fantasy, I mean wuxia, so we have a lot of kung fu, a lot of martial arts, which is very, very cool. I really like this book. And yeah, the main character is a teenage boy named Guo Jing. And the first volume is a lot about him trying to become a master of the martial arts, and his 7 shifus trying to teach him martial arts. And this also takes place in a time where China has been invaded from the north, so you also have kind of political tensions here, and yeah, a lot is going on in this book. I'm not going to give you much of a summary here, because I made a video about this one, but if you like Chinese fantasy, or if you want to explore Chinese fantasy, I think this will be a good place to start. So I highly recommend this one. I really enjoyed it. After A Hero Born, I continued with part 2 of The Legends of the Condor Heroes, A Bond Undone, which I also made a video about, and we basically follow the storylines that are being started in the first volume. And I also enjoyed the second volume quite a bit. It's a really great series so far. So yeah, if you want to explore Chinese fantasy and if you're into martial arts, I think you should read this. Then I read a book for work, which technically speaking wasn't a voluntary read, but I did read it, so I wanted to include it here, and that was a book called Salamandergurten, that translates to The Mystery of the Salamander, which was a children's crime fiction. The reason I read this was because I'm teaching a course on Norwegian children's literature this semester, and this was one of the books that the students had to read. So I also kind of had to read it. And this book basically follows a group of children detectives who find a man who is dead on the shore of the town where the crime takes place, or where the book takes place. And then the children try to find out what happened and what kind of crime the man who died was connected with. And yeah, I gotta say, the book was written surprisingly well, and I had quite some fun reading it. After that, I read We Three by Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley. This is a comic that follows three biologically transformed, let's say, animals, a dog, a cat, and a rabbit, who have been made into kind of killing machines. And in the beginning of this comic book, these three animals finish a very dangerous operation, and the people who were responsible for experimenting on the animals, they want the animals to be disposed of. And the researcher who made these animals into what they are now, into these killing machines, she doesn't want that, so she sets the animals free. And the story basically follows the dog, the cat, and the rabbit on their way to try to find a new home in a hostile world and try to find out who they are, because they are both animals but also killing machines. Yeah. This is a quite interesting comic. It plays a lot with the use of panels, and yeah, I enjoyed reading this quite a bit. I thought the theme was very interesting, of like trying to find out who you are, trying to find out where your home is, whether you have a home, and the whole communication between these animal-machine hybrids is also very interesting. So if you haven't read We Three, and if you want to read a comic that I guess is a bit different, I recommend you to read this. I had quite some fun with this one. Then I read another book for work with the title Lydighetsprøven. I'm actually not quite sure how to translate this into English at the moment, so I'm just gonna put the title circa in English here so that you can read what Lydighetsprøven means, more or less. This book follows a 12-year-old boy by the name of Elvis, who is being kind of mistreated by everyone. So he experiences mobbing at school by both the children his age and the children who are a bit older than him. They call him names and they are very mean to him. The whole book is written from the child's perspective, so you have very simple sentences, and you kind of see how he doesn't understand how everybody's treating him, because also the adults in this book are not treating him very well. And this book was quite depressing to read. It's not a fun read, but it's a good read. It was a very good book because of the narrative style, and also as an adult reader you understand so much of like what's not said in the book, because you as an adult, you have kind of a lot more life experience than the boy has, and that kind of makes this book quite difficult to read. But yeah, it's a children's novel. It was kind of surprising to me, because I thought, well, this is quite tough to read sometimes, and I'm just gonna say the book does not end very well, actually the contrary. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy reading it, but it was a good book to read. But you know what I mean when I say I didn't enjoy it, because it's depressing from start to finish. It's about a boy who's being mobbed, and it gets worse from there. After this uplifting read, I read Wastetide by Chen Qiufan. This is a science fiction novel / eco-thriller set in the near future, and it takes place on Silicon Isle, which is a peninsula off the coast of China, of the southern coast of China. And it takes place on this large waste site for electronic waste. And it tells the story of the people there and about kind of the conflicts there. It follows a set of characters who all have their different interests and agendas, and yeah. It's a very good book, I think. It's very distinctly environmental. Also, it is very thrilling to read, I think. So yeah, I made a video about this, which you're welcome to watch if you want. But yeah, basically, if you are up for a science fiction novel that is partly very realistic, I think, and that takes up a lot of interesting topics, and takes up environmental themes and questions of environmental justice in a good way, then I would recommend you to read this book. I had quite fun reading this. It's also a very advanced book, at least for me it was, language-wise, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. So yeah, Waist Tide. After that, I read another book for work, which was Mio, My Son by Astrid Lindgren. This is a Swedish children's novel, kind of a fantasy novel. And it tells the story of a boy named Bosse. I think his English name is different, but I don't know what he's called in English. But yeah, it tells the story of Bosse, who has the world's worst foster parents. And in this book, he goes to the faraway land where he finds his real father, who is the king in the faraway land. And he also finds out that his actual name is Mio. And then Mio and a friend of his, they experience quite some adventures there, and they have to fight against a bad, what's it called? Knight. They have to fight against a bad knight who takes away children and who curses them. Yeah. Mio, My Son is a quite nice children's book to read, although this is also not the happiest read, I guess. After that, I actually read another children's book, which I didn't read for work. I read it because I thought it was so cute, and that was We Found a Hat by John Klassen. This is a picture book that tells the story of two turtles who find a hat. And the problem is that they are two turtles and they only find one hat. And yeah, you need about 5 minutes to read this. But I thought it was quite cute. I really like the style of the book. And the turtles are cute. So yeah, I found this in a sale in a bookstore here, and I just thought it was cute. So I got it, and I regret nothing. After this very cute picture book, I read a not so cute novella, which was Edgar Allan Poe's Murders in the Rue Morgue. His first detective story about Auguste Dupin. I think he wrote 3 stories about him. And this one is seen to be the world's first detective novella. Yeah, I hadn't read this one. I had read The Purloined Letter before, which I think is also with Dupin as the detective. And I quite like this one. It tells the story of the murder of 2 women in Paris, which is very mysterious and nobody knows what happened, and the police cannot solve this case, but because of his great intellectual skills, our detective is able to solve the crime and find out what happened by means of paying attention to the witness reports that he reads in the newspapers and also to some observation that he makes at the crime scene. Yeah, I'm guessing that you probably know this one because it's a very known story, but yeah, I read it now and it was interesting. And then the last title that I want to mention is a title that I started in the beginning of July and finished at the end of August, and that was Jujutsu Kaisen. And technically I read volumes 0 through 16, which is the amount of volumes that has been published here. I think number 17 comes out in 1 or 2 weeks. So this is a very popular manga, also a really popular anime series, and it follows a high school student, Yuji Itadori, who becomes the vessel of a very potent curse, Sukuna. And then he goes to a school in Tokyo which is called Jujutsu High, which is a high school where people learn how to exercise curses. So in this world you have curses and people who can exercise them and people who can use them. And yeah, it's kind of a... is it horror? I don't know. It has horror elements. It's a shonen manga meant for older teen audiences, and I'm quite enjoying it so far. I have watched the movie that came out about volume 0, and I also watched the anime series, which goes until I think volume 7 or 8. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying this one. I will get the new volume when it comes out. And I guess the structure of the manga is quite typical in a way, because you have the overarching story of Yuji, who wants to find his new place in the high school since he became a vessel for a curse. Also, he has a looming kind of death sentence on him because he's eaten the curse, and because the curse that he has eaten is so dangerous. The higher ups kind of want to kill him so that he cannot harm anyone in case the curse takes over his body. This might sound very confusing, but it makes sense when you read it. And then you have the whole story about Yuji, and then you of course also have a villain who wants to establish a new world order, and which is a big threat to everybody basically. And then you have these smaller episodes in the manga where Yuji and his friends / classmates and his teachers, they have to exorcise curses and kind of find out what happens. So yeah, you have this bigger story of with the villain and him trying to establish a new world order and get rid of Yuji's teacher, who is kind of the most powerful guy there is basically. Also, he's kind of the most coolest guy there is basically, I think. And yeah, then you have these smaller episodes where Yuji and his friends have to fight and have to learn and have to get stronger. Yeah, I'm 16 volumes in and I'm kind of excited to see where this is going. So far, I think it's a very good series. So if you want to read a shonen manga with some horror elements that is a bit more on the darker side, you might want to read Jujutsu Kaisen. So yeah, those were all the books that I read in the last 2 months. A few more than usually, which I guess shows that I had at least 2 weeks of vacation. So yeah, we will see what September and October will bring. And remember, if you want to join me for Shibumi, please do. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and maybe I'll see you in the next one. Bye!